The Woody Lynch Show.
It's the Woody Land Show. I have no time for personal introductions or sponsors right now because we have to start this show. I have so much content to stuff in your head, stuff in your ears, that I have no time. There's absolutely no time to properly introduce myself, Woody, in this show, the Woody Land Show, and to plug any sponsors. We don't have any yet. But the show's going to start right now. It's going to start right now. Okay, so this first episode is to get the ball rolling. Okay, so when you're hopefully going back in the back catalog because you've picked up 100 episodes from now, you can get back to this first and say, man, it's come a long way. Because you know what I thought would be a very, very funny, well, not funny, actually, it was actually painful. I'm going to be honest with you. A painful first episode for me, okay, would be to go back to the very first podcast that I started, and read reviews from it. Because I'm going to tell you why. These reviews, they went for the kill. That is absolutely no joke. Okay, so way back when, I'm going to say 5 years ago. I think it was maybe longer by the time you listen to this. So it was a few years ago. My lovely wife, talked me into doing a true crime podcast. She said she was listening to a true crime podcast and that I should do one because I was kind of looking for something creative to get into, right? So I started thinking, okay, what is a local case that I could do that has not been done, that I could travel, that it wasn't too far. It was kind of in our bubble of traveling distance, and that I could kind of just cut my teeth on and try, and then hopefully become rich and famous and become like Payne Lindsay and Ashley Flowers and just be a podcast rock star. So what did I pick? I picked a case that took place in March of 1996, and it was called the Route 29 Stalker, right? So this was a case that I remember in high school. I graduated in 99. So I remember this case, and I remember at the time all the news that it got, especially when I was in high school, because I went to high school it was located on Route 29, but it was still about an hour away from where this happened, but it was just kind of like all in the same area bubble because all the news stations are in one spot in our area. So we tend to get the same news as all the other towns. So this case was that a stalker, whoever, was targeting young women on the road, right? So young women would be driving down Route 29, and this guy in a pickup truck would start flagging them down or waving at them, right? To pull over. Hey, pull over, pull over. You got something on your vehicle. It's sparking, whatever. So then they would get off on the side of the road, and then he would try to get them in his truck. Some of them he succeeded. Some of them he did not. One escaped. One that unfortunately started the podcast for us was Alicia Showalter Reynolds. And she unfortunately was found, her body was found a couple months later. So this whole case is like surrounded around that Route 29 Stalker. Google it. And if you want to, you can go listen to the podcast. I absolutely love you to listen to the podcast because then you can kind of tell me, hey, Woody, you listen to the Woody Land Show. Hey, Woody, it was a pretty good podcast. You shouldn't beat yourself up about it. Hey, you shouldn't talk bad about it because these reviews don't know. It's Alicia Showalter Reynolds, not Alicia Reynolds Showalter. It's Alicia Showalter Reynolds. That was the case. That was her name. And it's a horrible case. It's really horrible. The whole story is just so depressing and sad and just like, oh my gosh, it's so deep. I lost sleep over doing this podcast. I'm not going to lie. So when we started, I got a recorder. I remember Googling Payne Lindsay, and he had done Up and Vanished the first season. That hit big. And then I was like, what does he use? So I Googled, found one picture back then of him with a Zoom recorder in his hand. So I Googled, looked at that, I ordered one off Amazon, and then I just literally started calling, recording, and knocking on doors. Honest truth. That's what I did. We would go to Culpeper, which is where it happened, and I would knock on the door around where her car was found, and hey, do you know anything about this case? Like this was before COVID, by the way, and before people got really, really, really sensitive. So this was a huge learning experience for me. And throughout the podcast, I kept saying how I am not a journalist. I don't write. I don't do anything. All I did was pick up a recorder and I just wanted to help. So it was a very sincere project for me, really innocent and sincere. I've learned a ton since then, though. Like, I have absolutely learned you need to do more research. Like, if you're going to do true crime, you have got to research this. You've got to make sure that you are putting not speculation out there, because there are actual families involved. Like, her family is still alive, and they do not know who the killer is, and they have tried and tried. So, like, this is like real life stuff, right? So I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot technically in editing a podcast. And I also learned a lot in just kind of journalism. Like, you really should not pick up a microphone and just start speculating and throwing out theories about a true crime case that you really don't know a whole lot about. You're researching it and you're putting information out there at the time that you find out yourself, which is kind of fun and cool. However, in the end, fast forward a couple years later, you listen to it and you're like, oh my gosh, man, I should have really researched on that episode like for months before recording anything. However, so we did that podcast, right? And it wasn't a hit. I'm not going to say it was ever a hit, but it did kind of get in the top 100 in Apple. And you got to understand, like, true crime years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, wasn't as big on a podcast as it is now. So, like, there were a time we broke, I don't know, I want to say the top 50, top 10. I never got to like the top 5 or top. I never got that far, but it was really flattering, right? So this is your first one. All of a sudden it starts going up in the charts and you see the downloads. You're like, oh my gosh, this thing is getting downloaded like 10,000 times in a month. And then all of a sudden 10,000 times in a week. And you're like, oh gosh, what do I get? What do I have here? Right. And then people start listening. So the downside of that is that it wasn't a completed podcast when I released it. I was recording and releasing at the same time. So it wasn't like it was like, okay, people are catching on and then I have episodes in the bank and then we've all kind of planned it out. No. So what happened was I did like 4. And then by the time I got to number 4 and it was released, people were listening. And then I was playing catch up. Like, I was like, oh gosh, I got to have an episode out next week. I got to have an episode next to keep the downloads up, to keep information going, because it started to have a pulse with me. I started getting emails, but also started getting calls, and just there was like an energy about it. And come to find out, it was really being talked about in the area that some guy was doing a podcast, and people started talking about the case again, which was awesome. But then also you don't have the luxury of catching people by surprise that way. So what happened was, like, if you were hoping to talk to the sheriff's department or the police department about something, instead of you calling and people not knowing about the podcast, now all of a sudden they've heard like this guy is doing it and they all know we're okay. So if I have any advice, which I don't know if you should take any from me on doing a true crime podcast, but for this, really, honestly, you should plan it out, and then you should make some phone calls before you release any episodes. And then you should really kind of just get your sources and everything lined up and then kind of pursue it. Don't do like I did and kind of chase, and then you're always scrambling. Okay. So with that said, it was a great experience and I would love for you to listen to it. But one of the things that during doing that podcast, right? So that started a new career path for me. At that time, I was doing a lot of commercials. And when I say commercial, I mean local commercials. Okay. So like local car dealers, like at one time we were doing like 20 commercials a week. And when I say these are not cinematic, like filming for half a day, like I'm in there 30 minutes out, done. This planted the seed of creating content, right? Original content. So that podcast really started me down the track. And I actually opened up a podcast studio because of it. It didn't make me money to do that. I didn't make any money doing it. It just gave me the desire to start doing more podcasting and then start doing it for other people. So now we produce, I think it's like 15 to 20 shows locally for local people to do podcasts. And then I'll occasionally do my own like true crime conspiracy podcast every now and again, whatever personality is awakened. That is the podcast that ends up coming out at that time. So for example, Route 29 Stalker is the first one. That's the very first. If you want to go down the timeline and listen, and hopefully you see growth. If not, let me know. I'd get a good laugh out of that. Route 29 Stalker. And then we started Why So Cold, which is another true crime, but it was my attempt at being more organized. Then Bigfoot Classified. Those three are like the true crime conspiracy ones. Bigfoot Classified is about Bigfoot, but I tried to put a true crime spin on it. I'm really proud of that one. I feel like I did do a good job on that one. That one gets pretty good reviews. Okay. I'm coming back to the reviews. Hang tight on that. Okay. And also, when you listen to Route 29 Stalker, in it a lot, I was trying to be suspenseful in the voice I was doing. I hope you pick up on that from now until then. Like I was like, trust me, we're going to get back to that. And then I never got back to it. I don't know why. Like I never wrote anything out. So Route 29 Stalker, Why So Cold, Bigfoot Classified. Then I did a brief one called Hill City Paranormal, where we took haunted calls that later become Fright Chasers. That one's still out there. And then I have a whole bunch under Grove Street FM that I do locally, right? So we do some for the local police department here, the town government, a lot of the local stuff. You can find it at Grove Street FM. You can see a whole list of it, right? With all those podcasts now, right? I've gone back and I started reading the reviews. I really never got hung up on the reviews in the first place. I tried to stay away from them because people, it can really derail you if you think you're doing something good, but it also, it provides valuable feedback that I probably should take. So I started to go back, and honestly, if you can write a review and make me laugh, right? Or make a comment or something that's like, man, they got me. I'm all for it. But then some of the reviews I want to put on t-shirts, right? Okay. So I'm going to go down. I've always wanted to do this. And if you've listened to the podcast, then Route 29 Stalker, then this would be, you'll kind of get it. Maybe you should go back and listen to a couple episodes, but I've always wanted to reply to some of these reviews. I never did on Route 29 Stalker. I always kept it professional and really didn't read them then. And it wasn't until a few years later that I actually started reading them. Right. So I'm just going to go down the list. This is fun. This is going to start off this Woody Land show because we've got a couple things going on with this podcast, or I have. It's my personal outlet. Have fun. Talk about projects we have going on at the studio. And when I say studio, my studio houses all of my little businesses, right? So the main one is Watts Creative Studios. That's my marketing firm, my marketing agency, where we do marketing for local companies. It's great. I think we do a good job for these companies. We build websites. We do their social media. We do video work, a lot of fun. But Grove Street FM is our podcasting station. That's where we do the local shows right here at the table. I'm looking at it now. We broadcast in our app, the Grove Street FM app. We go live just like a radio station, but we don't have an antenna. We do local sports. We do a lot of stuff. And then Woody Land Productions, which is you're listening to this. This is my personal outlet on my goofy projects. And you will hear about those projects that some you may have heard of. Some, honestly, most of them you probably have not heard of. I'm going to be honest with you. But I absolutely love these projects. And it kills me sometimes that my friend and I, we do these, and my dad involved too. And then they just get a couple of views, but we absolutely love them. And I just want to talk about them more and interview and get them out there. But if not, then they're so sincere and I love them and they're hilarious to me. So Woody Land is just all about the fun stuff and the projects that I've done and that I'm doing. And that, if you're interested, that's fantastic. And if not, hopefully you get a good laugh or two, or you know what? There's plenty of other podcasts out there. I'm not going to lie. And we do a lot of them. We do about 20 of them. So if you want to listen to some of the other ones that I'm not in, go right ahead. Okay. So here we go. So Route 29 Stalker, I'm going down some of the good reviews that I like, right? So right now that podcast has let me look at this. It has a 3.6 star rating with 566 ratings. Okay. So here's the first one. This is a 1 star, and that's probably the ones I'm going to stick to, just the 1 star. Not much info, lack of organization. You know what? They're not wrong. They're actually not wrong because that case is still cold, right? There's not a lot of information, actually. So here's the review. A lot of time to convey very little info, filter out the pointless sounds, and repeat info, and it's a short listen. In the creator's defense, they're not journalists. That's an understatement. It's just disjointed, and you are left not knowing what is factual or evidence or what is rumor. It was disappointing. Although I have to say, I did not hear about most of these cases, and I've traveled this route many times during those years for my work. Scary as beep. Actually, they're not actually wrong, honestly. With that review, now that I read it, a 1 star. Yeah, that's pretty good. Like, it's a pretty good review. Okay. Wanted to like it. Should have read the reviews first. That's another 1 star. Okay, here we go. This sounds pretty good. I tried so hard to like this, but it's obnoxiously slow and contains almost no actual information. Oh, that hurts. It starts out just as the host and his wife speculating without providing any context or backstory. I think it's episode 3 that they finally shed some light with details of the case, but still it's like pulling teeth to figure out what's going on. Each 15 minutes or less episode is predominantly filled with recaps, music, false hope teasers about how it's going to get so close, ads, outros, and random filler content like phone branches, footsteps, traffic around lost, that each episode maybe contains 3 minutes of actual information. Even when the sources aren't reliable and it's mostly guessing and postulating, this could have all been single 1 hour episode, possibly 2. This was a huge stretch and felt like a grab for listeners to gain sponsorship. I think it did a disservice to the case or cases. Ow. I'm a podcaster and hate to bash a show, but this was not good. Oh, man, that would hurt because disservice to the case, that's not what I wanted. But, some of this stuff I could see where. That's fine. But I hate to bash a show. This was not good. I've never left a negative review for a podcast. Have y'all? Like, if you listen to a show and it's negative, right? I mean, have you ever just thought, I hate this show so much, I am going to go leave it a horrible review? I've never done that. And this week I tried to find a new show that I wanted to kind of dive into. I wanted one that I could listen to on a regular basis. And I tried 2 or 3, and they just weren't for me. Within the first 20, 30 minutes, I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to do that. But I never went and left a bad review. So here's another one. Waste of time, 1 star. Waste of time. I started listening, and right away I could tell he was reading off a piece of paper. I was not, actually. Man, I have to listen back to that. I was not reading off a piece of paper. But, all right. I started listening, and right away I could tell he was reading off a piece of paper. Sounded unnatural and painful to listen to. Well, Woody and his wife need to do their research. Well, not just brainstorm and rattle what could haves and maybes. Reviews I read are accurate. Well, there you go. Are accurate. All right, another 1 star. Speculation, not investigation. This has potential, but it's basically like if my friend and I decided to just start speculating on old disappearances, but no real investigation. Kind of disappointing, but good for them for taking the plunge into podcasting. I still got a 1 star though, and you gave me, you said, good for them for taking the plunge. But I mean, I get. Oh man, some of these are great though. Okay, another no story structure, just a bunch of speculation, no investigation, just people driving around. Could have been good, but way too vague. Yeah, too short. This is a good podcast, but why so short? And then starts with previous episodes over and over. That's brought up a lot. So I started it, and then I had some feedback where somebody said I should do a recap of the previous episode. Okay. And then put that at the beginning to build up suspense. So then I started doing that. But then later, I don't know, around episode 5, 6, 7, maybe, I started using the same recap for some reason because I thought people were not going back far enough. So maybe that's just an honest editing mistake where I didn't go and really put a proper recap in. I don't know. So this is a good one. SMH. Topic, awesome, podcast, amateur. Well, that's not wrong. You're absolutely right. And I said that a lot. Here's another one. Had to stop after my fifth, my wife. I did say my wife in a lot. I didn't want to say her name because I didn't want a stalker out maybe creeping up on my wife. However, I use my wife a lot. Here's what the review says. Could your wife possibly have a name? Oh, I see. So archaic and dumb to keep referring to her as my wife. Had to stop listening. Well, I wanted to do that because I didn't want people Googling or her name didn't need to be plastered everywhere. But I mean, I get that, but then again, I don't. Whole lot of nothing. 1 star. Not enough info in episodes. A whole lot of nothing is told. Okay, here's one. It's starting off really. I kind of like this so far. Please do better next time. 1 star. The host is likable and the sound quality is good. Yay. Hoping this host will take all the poor reviews to heart because this whole series probably includes 45 minutes grand total of quality information. Episodes are so short, yet still so much time is wasted with recaps, followed by repeating conversations from past episodes. That is accurate. Followed by just listening to traffic or walking or phone ringing. I'm going to come back to that, y'all. He should have laid the whole story out in episode 1, then dove into the full details, shared the new information learned during his research throughout the rest of the podcast. I'm rooting for this host. Oh, that's sweet. To listen to a few other crime podcasts and then try again, not give up it altogether. Unfortunately, this podcast left me like I still didn't know much about this story at all. That's not, even though it's 1 star and you see that and it just kind of stings a little bit. That's not horrible. That's actually pretty good. Like, I feel pretty good about that review. So thank you for whoever left it. I wish you'd give me like 3 stars, but that's fine. All right, here's another one. Read reviews before committing. 1 star. I should have read some reviews before I started listening. What a waste of time. Well, if the episodes are short, why is it a waste of time? I found myself at the end of an episode trying to rack my brain as to if there was a single piece of new information or if the entire episode was a recap. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. Okay, let's see if we can do one more. Let's do one more review maybe. And see, I'm going to find the best one real quick. I'm going to find the best one. I did my research for this podcast. Like I did that one, as you can tell. This is my laid back Woody Land show. Okay. Here's a good one. It needs more content. This sounds like it could be a very interesting story, but your episodes are way too short to spend 5 minutes recapping the previous episode. You lost me when you made me listen to an entire episode of an outgoing voice message just to find a park volunteer who remembered names. I remember that episode. I do remember that episode. I thought it was for emotional impact. I'm not going to lie. I thought I was like hitting some heartstrings. But, oh man, all right. We really don't need the audio of walking. 1 star. This pod felt like a parody with the long segments of the host walking or opening his car door in traffic. Really? More content, less feel, please. Man, I thought I was being like cinematic. I'm not gonna lie. I thought I was being like, I'm setting this tone, the scene. This is going to be great. People are going to be immersed. And obviously not. Obviously, nope. Obviously, people did not get it. Can't even say Alicia's name right. Well, that's because people say it 4 different ways. And I've heard her mom say it one way. I've heard newscasts say it one way. And I thought it was Alicia when I called it. But some people call it Alicia. I call it Alicia. This review says tons of conjecture, not deeply researched, comes off as phony. Well, it wasn't phony. It was not deeply researched. I will give them that. I will admit it. Okay, this one's funny though. Deleted after episode 5. I get it. Your wife wanted you to make a podcast. However, it was just terrible. Your speaking skills are very forced, to say the least. Oh, man. Boring how every episode is short and the first half is filled with ads and a recap about the last episode. I don't know the ads, though. I mean, I had one ad, Spokio, I think, or somebody sponsored me for like a week. And they said like it was like $200. I don't know, but it didn't last. Right? They didn't get a whole lot of hits or downloads or whatever, and that was it. You know, they were like, "Oh, we're not getting hits," so I think I made like $200. So it's like I don't know all these speakers. I mean, we have ads in there now because it's hosted through an ad thing, but it's not like I have sponsors. I had no sponsors. I pay for everything myself. Everything. There's none. Okay, I'm wrapping it up. Meh. Terrible narration. Man, that's a good one, though. Okay, this is my favorite one. I'm going to end on this one for the first episode of Woodland Show. This is 1 star, and the title says whole lotta. And then don't listen to this. It was an assault on my ears. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt. I think that's a great idea to get on a t-shirt. I think it's a wonderful idea. So, all right, that's some reviews of Route 29 Stalker. Wait, here's another one. Wait, I can't just pass this up. Hold on a second. Interesting. 1 star. I love the topic and enthusiasm. I wish that the actual episodes were longer. Also, I felt too much time wasted on revisiting what happened in the last episode. Feels as though everything is jumping from topic to topic. No cohesion. Keep pushing. Love it. I mean, that's not wrong, but it's still 1 star. Like what? Like if you have positive things to say, and then like you give me 1 star, that still kind of hurts though, because here's one thing. I do wish like hosts could respond to reviews of their podcast. I wish that we could go through and just say, like, some of these things, like, yeah, the episodes were short. They really were, but there was not a lot of information, and I was trying to stretch it out because I'd seen what people like they liked different episodes. And I know that I started listening to Payne's Up and Vanished. And when the episodes were longer than 30, 45 minutes, I struggled because I would get out the car and then I would not be in the same mindset when I got back in from a trip. And like everything in our area is like 20 or 30 minute drive. So for me, it was kind of weird. Like I would get out and then I couldn't get back into the groove. So every podcast that I tried to do would last under 30 minutes because that was my driving time. And that's what I liked listening to. Like I like listening to like a 30-minute good, like tight show instead of like an hour and a half of just like trying to find its way. Right? Like if you got good structure, it's fine. If you got a lot of information, it's fine. But if you're just stretching it out just to say you did an hour, I don't like that. So, I mean, I know I get the gist of the short episodes, but honestly, some of them are probably really too short. I get that, but yeah, whatever. All right, so I think I'm gonna end it on a good one. I think I'm gonna end it on this one. Okay, so this one makes me feel kind of nice. Route 29. This is 4 out of 5 stars. I am really picky about podcasts and don't typically go for things with short episodes. However, I really like this one. It was easy to listen to, and I binged it while house cleaning. There we go. I really appreciate that this was a normal person telling us about something that interested them instead of some huge production. I wish my hobbies were this cool. Now, that is lovely. That is absolutely lovely. And on that note, if you haven't, it's the very first podcast, Route 29 Stalker. It's about 5 or 6 years old now. I hope I've come a long way. I would love it if you listened to it and then came back and like, hey, I might redo it though. I might redo that podcast now that I think about it. Because now I have the tools to actually go back and I could do like Route 29 Stalker redo and just go back and just completely do a whole new format. Leave that one, but do it again, right? But then we did Why So Cold, which is another true crime one. But we'll get into that in another episode. Hey, thanks for listening to the Woodyland Show. The ramblings of this guy named Woody, which is me. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you subscribe, listen to it, comment, review. Leave me a 1-star review. I'll read it maybe. I don't know. We're on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. I don't know why I'm saying we. I'm on YouTube with some of my animated fun that I'm having and our shorts that we'll be talking about in this podcast and interviews. So if you would, I would absolutely love it if you went to YouTube and went to Woodyland Productions. So it's youtube.com/@Woodyland Productions. And on TikTok, I have a handful of followers. I would love more at Woodyland Productions. And if you go to the site, woodyland.productions, that's right. You don't even have to get a .com anymore. You go to woodyland.productions. That's the website. Like it's www.woodyland.productions. And just so you know that when I said I'd do local commercials, I'm going to leave you with my latest local commercial that I did last night at 11 o'clock that I filmed early in the day. I'm still doing it. I'm still on the grind. I'm still self-employed. I'm still out there, still trying to make a name for myself. Here's the ad that I just did, and I love doing it. Thanks.
Santa says touch your nose! Santa says touch your toes!